Welcome everyone to another episode of Snap Raise Live. We've been working with leaders and legends all across the country during the coronavirus to try and expand the knowledge and the opportunity and the resources to all of our customers and prospective people that we work with so that we can grow sport and teams across the country. And we've had leaders and legends, and occasionally we've had both join us, and that's what we have today. And Miss Valorie Kondos Future, and we can't thank you enough for taking some time to share some of your wisdom and insights, Miss Val.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, of course. And so we fundraise for teams, groups, and clubs, and we've raised over $350 million since we started in 2014. And we continue to help gymnastics programs across the country. I see some Washingtonians. I saw the Stephanie Gundel. I've seen Centennial High School in Nevada represented. So we've got a diverse smattering of attendees, coaches, and administrators. And so it's fun to have them privy to what we're doing here today. And Miss Val, you talked about how you just taught a course about phenomenal coaching and leadership at the collegiate level, and you said it was a ton of fun. And so I guess I want to get started on that and just have you kind of talk about the overarching philosophies that you talked about and how you interweaved, what you teach and what you see with some of the other great coaches and mentors in the athletic space.
Thank you so much. I was so excited when UCLA asked me to teach this course because I retired last June, a year now. And the reason why I retired was I'm just so passionate about continuing the conversation of redefining success, and is all winning success. And the fact that I feel like in every venture in life that there's a win at all cost culture that most of us have adhered to. We certainly saw it in the United States Gymnastics Federation with what happened with the Larry Nassar scandal, and how he was able, that pedophile was able to have so much access to so many young women. It was because all we cared about was winning and medals. And that really got me started with this. No, this isn't right. We have got so much damage that's being done to our youth, mentally, emotionally, and physically, that comes from coaches and parents, leaders that adhere to a win at all cost culture. And they're not willing to accept the responsibility for the collateral damage that comes from it. So I retired, and I go out and talk to whomever will listen to me. And that's why, getting back to your question, I was really excited when UCLA said, let's have you teach a course on transformative coaching, and let's study the philosophies of coaches and leaders that have won, not been, you can argue if they've been successful or not, but have won. And so we studied Phil Jackson, we studied Bobby Knight, we studied Pat Summitt, Belichick and Saban, we studied me, we studied obviously Coach Wooden, and it was so interesting to see the commonalities amongst all these coaches. The commonalities are attention to detail, unbelievable structure within their programs, unwavering commitment to their moral standards and to their foundation of their programs. Even Bobby Knight, like unwavering, but those commonalities are what allowed them to have this tremendous success. Now, my question that I posed to the students was, okay, it wasn't the principles they set forth, it was how they went about executing the principles. And that's where you get the difference between someone who's a screamer, a chair thrower, a choker like Bobby Knight, and someone who is more zen like Phil Jackson. It was fascinating.
You mentioned is all winning success, and I know that you've been speaking on that a lot. And so you've been on national morning shows and TED Talks, and even speaking with human resources, namely, and plenty of other companies. And recently, the description of success that I personally have arrived at is really just achieving the best possible expression of myself. And so that is, being the most conscientious, thoughtful, considerate, invested person that way. And that's a general description. But I guess as you dive into that question and you explore it through your class and through your conversations, what is the answer to the question that you pose? Is all winning success? No, right? But how do you define it? What does success look like to you in your description?
Success to me, and let me just say, your definition of success is literally what Coach Wooden coined as his definition. You're just using the words that resonate with you more. Coach Wooden's definition of success is peace of mind and knowing that you've done your best, is really what kicked me off into figuring out how I wanted to coach and why I was coaching. And so through the years and through thinking about this over and over and over again, what is success? Success truly is, I believe in what you said and what Coach Wooden has said, is being able to go to bed at the end of the night, have some downtime, reassess my day, go through all my little checklists. Was I honest? Was I hardworking? Was I considerate? Was I kind? Was I true to myself? Did I make excuses or not? And if I could check off the boxes that were positive, then I had a successful day. And if I can chalk up more successful days like that during the course of the year, then I'm having a successful year and a successful season. My definition of success as a coach, as a leader, it became so clear to me early on in my coaching that I believe that sport is a masterclass in teaching really, really, really tough life lessons that you don't learn in the classroom. And so I was going to utilize the time that I had with our student athletes to develop these young women into champions in life that were going to go out in the world and make the world a better place. And if I did that well enough and I could recruit talent, I was at UCLA, I could recruit talent, then that champion mentality would transfer to the competition floor and we would win. And it did. And that has given me the platform to be able to go out and speak to this. Obviously, I would not be getting the speaking offers. You probably wouldn't be asking me on this platform had I not won 7 national championships. So the winning is what gets people attention, but then I get to come through and give them a curveball and say, I never focused on winning, ever. I focused on developing superheroes through sport.
Well, I'm going to throw you a curveball here because I'm hearing that GoToWebinar sees you upside down. So I'm going to ask you to invert your camera if you can. Are you on like a phone or something that you can turn upside down? I know this is a, I guess that's so.
Am I right side up?
I think that'll fix it. We've gotten a couple of people saying it. So if you don't mind that works for me.
I don't know if it'll stay like this though. Okay, how's that?
It's great. Carrie Martin from the Northwest, I believe, was saying that she appreciated your insight. She loves what you had to say. So it's something that's actionable for people. And so I'm going to go back before the success and before the winning and before turning your athletes into superheroes. And something that was pretty phenomenal to me was the fact that you don't have a gymnastics background at all, but you were tasked with leading the UCLA gymnastics program in the early 90s. And how does someone get honored with that challenge, that opportunity, without having a gymnastics background? I know you are so strong in choreography, but they had to see something in you, even though you were kind of win at all costs initially, and you documented that in detail of that. So maybe if you can get us apprised of how things went from where they were at to where they are now.
First of all, I'm cracking up because you told me to turn I'm on my iPad to turn it around because I was upside down. And one thing I tell people is I've never gone upside down. Like, I was never a gymnast. I've never gone upside down. You're like, you're upside down. I was like, finally, I'm upside down.
Congratulations.
Okay, so I was a ballet dancer, choreographer. When I was asked to be the head coach after I'd been there for 7 years as the dance coach, by Dr. Judy Holland, who was one of our athletic administrators, athletic directors. And she is the godmother of Title IX in sports, in the NCAA. And she really she liked to hire women, obviously, Title IX, but she hired people that she saw the character in that she wanted to lead the program versus their abilities. And so when she asked me to be the head coach, and I laughed in her face, and I said, you remember, I don't know the first thing about gymnastics. And she told me, she says, I like how you are firm, but you're compassionate with the student athletes, and I trust you'll figure the rest out. And that was all I got. So I made the biggest mistake of my career, and I feel this is a huge mistake that so many people make now, especially with social media out there and comparing yourselves. We live in a world of comparisons. And my first few years as a head coach, I just mimicked other head coaches that have been successful. I had no foundation. I had no ideal culture that I wanted to implement. I just copied other coaches that had been successful. And it was horrible. And literally, JT, as we were talking at the very beginning, I happened upon Coach Wooden's definition of success about 3 years into my coaching career, where we were horrible. Our team was like horrible. I was horrible. And his definition says success is peace of mind and knowing you have done your best. And I had this aha moment. I was like, by mimicking other people, I've been trying to be somebody else. And it was so clear to me that in life, whenever you try to be somebody else, you will always be a second-rate them. You will never be as good at being them as they were. Like, even if I tried to mimic Coach Wooden, I would have always been a second-rate John Wooden. And the worst thing that happens is it stifles you from really becoming the best you that you can be. So I stopped mimicking other people. I went back to my office and I thought, what the heck do I bring to the table? I had 17 years of classical ballet training. Okay, how am I going to figure out this job? And well, first of all, hire good people, hire assistant coaches that know everything you don't know how to do, which was the gymnastics part. But there's a big part of sport that I did learn through the theater. And that was how to prepare myself physically, mentally, emotionally, so that when I was standing in the wings, I was calm, I was confident, and I was excited to get on stage. And no joke, but in the wings, there were buckets where some of the dancers would throw up before they would go on stage because they were so nervous. And I didn't get that. I was like, why are you throwing up? This is the fun part. This is the celebration of all your hard work. So when I looked at the athletes I was coaching, their metaphor for standing in the wings is standing there at attention, waiting for the judge to salute them to go up in the event. And when you see athletes, a lot of gymnasts, they're like, their palms are sweating, their mouth is dry. They're taking these deep breaths. And I was like, oh God, okay. I can prepare them for that moment as well, if not better than any other coach in the country. So along that time as well, I heard something that said, never outsource your competencies. And I thought, okay, I'm going to outsource my incompetencies, which happened to be all the gymnastics part, but I made sure not to outsource what I was competent at. And that really started this trajectory of people saying how unorthodox I was in my coaching, which to this day they say. And I'll never forget, I had a senior a few years later said to me, Miss Val, you finally became a leader worth following. And I was like, okay. And she says, because you're not trying to be anybody else. So even when you screw up and make mistakes and you sincerely apologize to us, we know your intention is coming from an authentic place. and not from something you read in a book or someone you're trying to mimic.
Well, you talked a lot in there about preparing athletes physically, mentally, emotionally, and we've got a question from somebody revolving around that and coronavirus. And I'll start by saying, I guess, that I've seen how much fun a lot of your athletes have, like Kaylin Ohashi, and some of the routines and the exercises that I don't know that anyone can rival that. I know Bev Plocky at the University of Michigan, and her gymnasts do a great job too. But I mean, you've got it in spades. And so the question is revolving around kind of maximizing the athletes during coronavirus. You know, they've been on pause for months. And so the specific question from Alexandria, she asked, do you have any insight or recommendations for coaches to help motivate and build confidence in athletes who have been away from their sports? Similarly, any recommendations to build a sense of team amongst teammates? And I couldn't think of a better person to answer this question as it relates to gymnastics and competition than you.
Is that question referring to when they're coming back? Do you know?
Yeah, I think reacclimating from the time away and how you build that camaraderie and the confidence and kind of press reset maybe.
First of all the research that I have done and everything that I have read and every panel I've been on says the same thing, that especially girls do sports. One big reason is because they like to be with their friends. They like the social aspect of it. And I have spoken with a few coaches from gyms that have recently have been opened up for a few weeks. And they say how important it is to give the athletes time to just sit around and giggle and talk and do whatever they do to reconnect socially. Secondly is to let everybody know we're all on the same page, and we're as nauseating and mundane as this can be, we're going to go back to the basics. And we're starting with basics. We're starting with really strong conditioning program. And, you know, athletes in particular, but all humans, I believe, have a competitiveness in us. We are born with some type of competitiveness. And so it's important to set goals. Set a weekly goal with your team, break it down into daily goals, reiterate what those are every day, and make them fun challenges, and then celebrate those challenges, celebrate the small victories, so that we can get back and those competitive juices can start working again, and celebrate it, and break your team up into two. Like every single day would break up our team into blue versus gold. And as silly as the challenge was, it didn't have to be anything really specific to our sport, but a silly little challenge, and you see how their competitiveness just ignites, and then they go like, and that's when you start building that team camaraderie, especially in a sport like gymnastics, which is almost, you know, it's really an individual sport. So I always thought it was really important to ignite those competitive juices at the beginning of practice with, I'm talking like silly little games that they just totally bought into.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's awesome. I want to encourage our attendees to be able to submit questions. So we've got our GoToWebinar control panel where you can submit questions here, and definitely want to continue to ask them throughout. So we had some asked beforehand. Oh yes, Miss Val.
I have something else I want to say to that just
okay.
Is you've got athletes that are coming back to their sport. Let's remember why they started to do this sport in the first place, because it was fun. And so I think coaches that are going to bring their athletes in and feel that they have to make up all this time by being so rigid and stringent and strategic with every little moment I think they're missing the big picture.
How did that work with Kaylin Ohashi when you tried to be strict and stringent and, you know, coaching her hard? Did that work well?
She looked me in the eye. I think she did this with her head and said, I just want you to know that everything you tell me to do, I do the exact opposite. I was like, oh. And in my mind, I'm going, okay, challenge accepted. Got it. But, you know, the last Winter Olympics, when the Netherlands took home so many medals, they were I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm about to say. they interviewed the director of their Olympic committee, and he said one reason why their athletes do so well is because they've never lost the sense of fun for what they're doing. And in the Netherlands, you don't compete on a team or like a travel squad for a win, for a score, for a championship until you're 13. And so kids grow up simply doing the sport because they love it. And they feel that that is what has stayed with their mature athletes all those years.
And so how do you cultivate that fun and enthusiasm at the highest level? Because it seems like a challenge. So I played college football. I played for Coach Harbaugh, and it was, better tomorrow than today, better today than yesterday, just like keep working, out tough, out physical, out everything, right? And it's certainly a sport with a lot of testosterone and bravado, but how do you integrate that fun? And I know you talked about the little challenges, but in a sport like gymnastics where you're trying to cultivate the peak expression of themselves athletically while understanding the challenges of the growing, maturing, young athlete, how did you go about that and doing that basically better than anyone else ever has in your sport?
Wow, that was quite a compliment. I feel it comes through with the demeanor of the head coach, because obviously a lot of people, that the haters will say that I was able to win because I had talent. Okay, well, we all know that you don't win just because you have talent, right?
Haters gonna hate. That's a rule. That is a fact.
What exactly, so, but I've always felt that we're all basically doing the same stuff. We're all doing the same amount of work. We're all doing the same conditioning. All the teams, they're all putting in the same hours and the same reps. It's how that instruction is being disseminated to the student athletes. And we've seen the coaches that are just here and they coach from their ego and they're dictators. And the athletes are robots. The athletes are little commodities for their chess game they're playing, versus the coaches that are in it with them and are excited about it and bring about, okay, guys, listen, today we're going to get 1% better. This is how we're going to get 1% better. This is what it's going to look like. We're in this together and working together as a team. And I go into this in my TED Talk quite a bit, that there is simply a difference whenever you're leading another human being, you're parenting, coaching, teaching, leading. Whenever you are helping another human being better themselves, you can come about it from dictating, or you can come about it from motivating. And motivating someone takes much longer than dictating and barking orders does. But just think about the times in your life that you've truly been motivated to make a change in something. That motivation is deep rooted. You understand and you are embracing the reason why you want to do this. And the effects are long lasting versus dictating change to an athlete, which that change only lasts that long. If I'm telling the student athlete that she's got to get her legs straight on her hanging from the bar, her leg lifts from the bar, get your legs straight, point your toes, I can bark orders all day long and she'll do it because I told her to. But if I can explain to her how getting her legs straight and pointing her feet is going to translate to her gymnastics skills being easier and better, therefore her score is going to be better, then she will have the motivation to want to do that on her own.
Do you ever have the hankering to go to a practice or get back involved in coaching, or what does that look like? Because it sounds like you've learned this master class and you've got this wisdom and you're teaching it certainly to others as a teacher at UCLA in your coaching class. But do you ever get back out there? Do you envision, re-engaging either maybe the US gymnastics community or UCLA gymnastics? What does the future look like for you? Because you still have all of this great wisdom to share and provide and to lend to others.
Okay, so as crazy as this sounds, someone asked me if I would ever get back into coaching again, and I was like, yeah, but I want to coach a different sport. I want another challenge. I want to be able to learn and coach and figure out how to motivate athletes in a different sport.
What would be your preferred sport?
I love football. Football is my favorite sport.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this. I don't know if they pulled this up in my bio or not, but 3 years ago when Coach Mora was still at UCLA and they had their spring game and it was blue versus white, and he had our women's soccer coach the blue team, and I coached the white team. And I was so into it. And yes, we won. So I'm 1-0 in football.
You know, is all winning success? You know, in that instance, we're going to chalk that one up for Miss Val. Yes, absolutely. I would be remiss if I didn't mention John Wooden, and something that we tell our people who work with, you know, our teams, groups, and clubs, especially during coronavirus, it's like you want to be sensitive to the conditions of the club, but you want to help them, right? And sometimes you just have to ask and you have to reach out. And so in your conversations, trying to get John Wooden to speak with you and interact with you, you try to go through your husband, who was a football coach and knew Coach Wooden. And so you said, hey, I'd like to invite him over for dinner. And you know, your husband's like, you know, I don't know. I mean, he probably gets a lot of invitations and everything. And you just kept asking. You just kept asking. And then finally he said yes. And would you mind maybe detailing how that night went? Because it sounded like it was pretty eventful, leading you to eventually kicking him out of your home. Please share if you would.
It's true. And I have a whole section in my book called The Art of the Ask, because quite often, I'm sure you get it as well, when sometimes people ask and they're just downright annoying. And like, even if I want to do it, I'm not going to do it because you're just annoying. So there's an art form to asking. And my biggest ask came in 1982 when I was dancing professionally, ballet. And I heard UCLA needed a dance coach for their gymnastics team. And without any hesitation, I picked up the phone, I called the head coach, gave him my credentials, and they offered me a full scholarship to go to UCLA. So my entire career, adult career, happened because I was not afraid to pick up the phone and make the ask. And I remember thinking, you know what? The worst thing they can say is no. I'm not going to take that personally. It's like, no, you suck. They just say no. And so the next big ask came when I asked my husband to call Coach Wooden, because my husband was our defensive coordinator. He knew Coach Wooden. I had never met Coach Wooden, and I was like, why not? Let's just ask him. And I told Bobby, I said, my husband grew up sharecropping in Texas. Coach Wooden grew up farming in Martinsville, Indiana. You guys can talk about farming all night long, you know? Maybe he would welcome it, something different. And I did not ask my husband, but I nagged him for about 3 weeks straight. Did you call Coach Wooden? Did you call Coach Wooden? And I don't know whether it was to shut me up or because he finally saw the wisdom in making the ask. But he did call Coach, and he did say what you said, you know, Coach, I married our women's gymnastics coach, and we would love to invite you over for dinner, but we know how many invitations you get every night and how full your calendar is and how many obligations you have. And Coach Wooden said, Bobby, I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you asking me over for dinner, or are you giving me all the reasons that I shouldn't come? And Bobby said, no, please come. And so Coach comes to dinner. It was 5:30 because he was 88. I figured that was the time octogenarians eat. And he stayed till 11:30. And they told farming stories the majority of the time. And yes, I think I'm one of the few people on planet Earth that's ever kicked Coach Wooden out of their home. I had to get up really early. I was like, come on, Coach. But that simple ask, and not asking something of him, but asking him to come join us in our home and not have to sign books and not have to give a speech and not have to meet somebody else. It was just an authentic, would love to get you, Coach Wooden. That one ask started the relationship that my husband and I had with Coach and his family until the day he died. And we were like family. We spent many days, occasions together. And I mean, how did that happen? Like, how did a ballerina end up getting the greatest mentor on the planet as her mentor?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll ask for just a little bit more insight there. You at the time were successful, and obviously there was the UCLA fraternity, sorority, brotherhood, sisterhood, and so what did you take away from that interaction with Coach Wooden that you found to be most transformative, or what did he teach you that you didn't already know? Because you strike me very much as someone who's a lifelong learner, and so what characteristics did he reinforce, or what thoughts did he create inside of your mind that you felt really made you better as a coach or better as a human? I guess it's a really broad, why was Coach Wooden so great for you personally?
No, but that's a great question, because it's a very simple answer, but when you think about it, it's massively transformative. And that is, I knew Coach Wooden's philosophies. I knew his moral, ethical code, his character. I knew that he was extremely Christian, that he grew up with the Bible, that he was an English major. I knew he loved poetry. I knew that he adhered to the commandments, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. I knew that he was raised with a very, very strong moral code, but he was also in the sport of athletics. He also won 10 championships in 12 years. How do you do that? Maintaining this ethical, moral code. And being around him is in so many different areas. I was either over at his house for dinner, or taking him to speak in front of 10,000 people, or taking him to the Rose Bowl for football, basketball, whatever it was. Coach Wooden was always the same. And whether it was just Coach and I speaking, or him speaking, like I said, in front of massive amounts of people, he was always kind. He was always humorous. He never, ever said a disparaging word about anyone. Coach was exactly what you read and heard about him, was who he was, even in his personal private time. And that really resonated with me, because I grew up on stage. And so when I would drive into the parking lot to go to a gymnastics meet, I literally would sit in my car, take a deep breath, and go, okay, showtime, here we go. And I would turn on the lights, and I would become this bigger than life version of me. And then after the event, after the meet, I'd get in the car and I'd come home and I would just collapse. And my husband said to me one time, he goes, I understand that it's the exhaustion that comes from being in a game or being in an event or having to be on all the time. He said, but you're up here, you're so up here, and you're this magnetic personality. And when you get home, it just dies. And he goes, and I get nothing of that. And I was like, yeah, why do I do that? why do I have to be two different people? And that's when I started studying Coach Wooden. It was like, I just be me, just be normal. I don't have to be way up here, just be normal.
Well, to that, Amber Torres from Linwood High School in Washington is asking a little bit about how you stay calm during meets and competitions. She said that your energy just radiates when your athletes are between rounds and you can stay so stoic. She would love to know how she would be able to give athletes that type of confidence when they're going. Just no doubt that they'll be amazing instead of feeding off of her nervous energy.
Amber, that is such a great question. Thank you for asking that. And it's so important, okay? First of all, you got to know your why. What's your North Star? Why are you doing what you're doing? I really reinforced every single day, I'm developing superheroes, champions in life through sport. It's not about winning and losing, because if you only focus on winning and losing, then all you're focusing on is bragging rights and your ego. Being able to say, ha, we beat you. Okay, sport is much more than that, than ego. And so you have to keep hitting that refresh button on why you're doing it. Second of all is I always looked at our competitions as a celebration of all their hard work. And so to me, it was performance time. It was like, that's when we get to be on stage. And you're going to make mistakes. I mean, the thought that you're going to have a competition or a game or a meet and your athletes are not going to make mistakes, it's not going to happen. I can't think of one meet where we just hit 24 for 24 routines, lights out. And coaching, as an athlete, as a coach, it's not how many times you fall. It's the intention with which you get up and move forward. And so in competition, I kept reminding myself that we're celebrating all of our hard work. And if I wanted okay, here we go, Amber, pay attention. I'm going all this spell on you right now. If you want your athletes to be in that zone of relaxed and calm and joyful and playing together as a team, and you're sitting back there worried about every little thing or whether you're going to win or not, they are going to pick up on your energy. And I always felt I was a big fat hypocrite if I allowed myself to get nervous about the outcome of the meet. That was being hypocritical because I coach them to stay in the moment. I coach them to stay in what we call our Bruin bubble, which is our team, like this. I coach them up to be loose and have fun and joyful and celebrate. It's a celebratory event. So I need to model that behavior. And there were many years that I did not model that behavior. And when I started holding myself accountable to it, I started having my athletes tell me they felt they were having the best competitions of their lives because they were feeding off of my energy, which was positive versus nervous energy.
The Pac-12 feature that I saw on you showcased your greatness in this regard, in being able to just say the right thing at the right time, to project the right energy. I thought there was somebody who underperformed on a vault and wasn't sure if they were going to perform on the beam later on in the competition. And you're like, well, I'm going to think about it, right? We're going to see, what the energy looks like and how the team's coming together and where she's at in her headspace. And then if I remember correctly, you put her on the beam, she absolutely crushed it. And it's like, there goes Miss Val again in all of her awesomeness. So, I mean, that display for me just said it all. And how do you know when to pull the right levers and how to apply this all? Is this just an emotional intelligence that you've developed and cultivated through lifelong learning and continual investment in yourself and in your team? And then your team always changes. So there's so much to it. I guess, how are you so good at knowing what to do and what to say at the right times, especially later on in your career when you had it rolling?
I feel that authenticity in the relationship that you have, that I chose to develop with each athlete, was the base for a lot of the success that we had. And as I said earlier, it takes a lot longer to motivate an athlete than it does to dictate to an athlete. And that person that you talked about is Kyla Ross, who was an Olympic gold medalist, and she was having an off day. And I remember what you're talking about so clearly, her coming up to me with just this saying, Miss Val, I'm just not feeling it today. Well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe that like your talent left you. It's gone today, and so it's just, we had a conversation, an honest conversation on the competition floor. Do you feel ill? Are you okay? No, I'm fine. Okay. Are you just kind of like feeling a little down? Yeah, I'm fine. I said, well, you know what, Kyla, let's just see how the meet goes. And you certainly have the numbers underneath you. I always talk to the girls about, just go to your bank. Like if you're not doing well, she fell on vault, then she went to bars. The next event, she fell on bars. I was like, you don't have to go in to get more training. Go to your bank. You've banked thousands of these skills. Just go pluck one out. And if I'm going to have you go on beam, just go pluck out a beam routine. And I want you to know, Kyla, if I ask you to go, it's because I have full faith. Not that you're going to hit a perfect routine, but I have full faith that your intention will be honorable to yourself and your team. So that's all I ask. And to be able to have that honest of a conversation with someone and get an honest response in the heat of the battle, think about that. That didn't happen in that moment.
That's trust.
Months of laying a foundation of trust.
Mm-hmm. Well, so to speak to your coaching ambition for coaching football, perhaps, we do have a question about what you would consider the biggest difference in motivating coaching girls and boys, and where's the overlap. So it's, you know, it's not too audacious a question, just, you know, maybe we're priming your candidacy for, you know, eventually coaching UCLA or elsewhere.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this. I do feel that there is a difference between coaching boys and girls. I've heard from every single coach that has coached both say the exact same thing. That, you know, you tell a guy, get in the weight room, make your legs stronger so you can be faster. He goes, okay, coach. You tell the girl, go get in the weight room, get your legs faster, stronger so you can be faster. And she walks away crying saying, my coach said I'm fat. So I've heard that story so many times from coaches and coaches. But I think that we are not, I feel that we are doing a disservice to our male coaches by not addressing the human components of them, not just this badass warrior component they grow up wanting to beat the crap out of everybody, but that they are human beings, and the fact that they have struggles and they are not as emotionally strong as they look physically all the time. Obviously, sometimes they are. But, and I say that because during my tenure at UCLA, there were so many times that a male athlete would just stop by my office for the old pop-in. And it was someone that knew one of my girls and that was struggling. And the girls would say, why don't you go talk to Miss Val? And so whenever they showed up at my office just to pop in, I knew something was on their mind. And every single time, I'd shut the door and I'd talk to them about everything except their sport. And the tears would come. And I would say, I'm talking like probably at least 10 male athletes over the course of the last 10 years stopped by on their own, different sports. And I'd say, who do you have in your staff that you can do the pop-in like this and share this with? Every one of them said no one. And I said, why? And they said, because I'm afraid to show signs of weakness. And so they're taught that their emotions are weakness. They're taught that when they show vulnerability, it's being weak, versus the exact opposite. It's showing and this is something we started talking about the course that I taught. It was a graduate school course, UCLA, and there were only 10 kids in the course, students in the course, and every one of them was either a fifth-year student or a football graduate assistant coach. And the underlying book that we read throughout the course was Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. That is, if you're a coach, you got to read Dare to Lead. And every one of these guys, especially in this class, was like, I never thought of vulnerability as a strength, and how me showing vulnerability to my players could actually get them to buy in more and to support me more and want to champion me more than dictating, barking orders, and pretending as a coach that you know it all. There is no coach that knows it all. There's not.
I think a lot of the success you're seeing from younger coaches like Sean McVay there in Los Angeles, or Brad Stevens with the Celtics, even Dabo Swinney at Clemson, I think you're seeing more vulnerability. I saw Dabo Swinney getting a wet willy after he won a national championship on the stage. If you've got that type of relationship with your players, I mean, it's a tough balance to negotiate, but that certainly you've developed that trust. Another comment here from Brian. He says he loves the warmth and the co-creation that you have with your athletes and everything that you embody and that you practice. He was wondering if you had any tips when it came to getting to know your athletes and maybe when when to give them a nudge or how to, and you talked about investing in your athletes and getting to know them, but what are the best ways to do that to then be able to coach them most effectively?
Well, that question rings so true to me, because I've always said one of the biggest things that helped me in my career, one of the biggest gifts that I had, was I didn't know anything. I didn't know about gymnastics, but more importantly, I did not know how to develop a team culture. I didn't grow up with that. So everything was new to me. And I say it's a gift because I had to ask 100 questions a day. And that became my standard of how I coached. And so if I have an athlete that's up on beam and she did a beautiful beam routine, instead of just giving her a high five and moving off, I go, okay, high five, come here, educate me. Educate me. What were you thinking before you went? What was your mindset? What was your mental choreography you were telling yourself? How can I help you get that back when we want to recall that? And if they fall, they make a mistake. So like old school coaching is demeaning and degrading, which teaches the athlete that they have to formulate a judgment on themselves when they do poorly. And that's just total BS. That needs to go away and never come back in our leadership of children. Because when an athlete makes a mistake, all you need to do is say, hey, are you okay? Did you get hurt? No. Okay. So what were you telling yourself before you went? Okay, well, I think you needed to tell yourself this instead. And it's a teaching moment, right? And so the athletes that I coached never had fear of failure. They never worried that they were going to get berated in a meet if they fell. In fact, if they did get down on themselves, that's when I got pissed. That's when I was like, oh, get over yourself. Really, seriously, you think you're God, you're never going to make a mistake? Get over yourself. Because right now, you having your little pity party is not doing anything for your team. Get over it. But when they would make a mistake and it would be like, kind of like, ugh, I'd be like, okay, I got it. You're upset. Got it. That's what makes you such a great competitor. Let's talk about what we can do next time to have a different result. So never assigning a judgment to and making it personal.
Got a final question here revolving around coaching. What do you think they need to do in the sport of gymnastics to grow more coaches? What are you doing specifically to grow coaches in the sport? This is obviously something, so this counts, this webinar. And then, how were you training your assistant coaches? So I guess what was your process? And then, what do you think needs to be done by others to continue to grow the sport to be emotionally intelligent and empathetic and the type of leaders that you would want to be led by?
Yeah, well, great. Education, education, education. Change does not come when there's no growth, and growth comes from educating. Like you said, I look like someone who has a growth mindset. I do. I'm a voracious reader. I watch YouTube stuff on coaches. I glean the good and the bad and the ugly from them. But we are at a time now where we cannot ignore the psychological and emotional impact that we have as coaches. We can't. And this is my, why I'm out there so much. There's more reports of depression, anxiety, stress, and suicide amongst our youth than ever before. Suicide rates are at 53% amongst our youth. That's on us. That's on us coaches, on us parents, on leaders. Anybody who oversees the development of a young person, as someone in high school, in college, that is on us. And so the best way to be able to be a hard-ass strategist that is also empathetic and altruistic and really cares about the whole person that you're coaching and not just this little sliver that's the athlete, is to educate yourself on leadership books and what strong leaders look like. Because if you pick up any leadership book outside of sport, they're all going to tell you the same thing. They all talk about the importance of quote unquote soft skills, the importance of learning how to listen to your athletes, even if you don't like what they're saying, to shut up and listen to them. And this is the cool part about this little segment right here. When you rearrange the letters that spell listen, it spells silent. So in order to truly listen, you have to silence your mind. And listening is one of the best ways you can show respect for someone. And so I believe the greatest coaches are brilliant strategists who love the game, love the chess match of the game, but also see their players not as pawns, but as whole human beings. And when you fortify your athlete as a whole human being, that's when the magic happens. That's when not just their athleticism kicks in, but that's when they're able to go into a competition, make a mistake, recover, and not get Debbie Downer and be able to finish brilliantly. That's what happened with Kaylin Ohashi.
I think all of our listeners have now been Miss Val. I think that, you just got a knowledge bomb there delivered as only you can deliver it. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today and helping to grow the sport. We do that through fundraising. We also try and offer professional development resources and personal development resources through something that we call the Leading Edge, where we talk with group leaders and just have them share their best practices. And so you've been terrific today, and I can't thank you enough. And I'd like to give you a last word of sorts here, anything that you want to close with, because there's a seemingly infinite amount of wisdom that is stored in the cranium there that you possess.
Thank you. I just want to leave all of you, coaches, parents, even leaders of your athletics, of your assistant coaches, the fact that coaching, teaching is a massive responsibility. It is a daunting responsibility that we all know athletes will listen to their coaches, usually, not always, but more than their parents. We have more influence over the athletes whom we coach than a lot of people in their families. And because of that, every single thing you say, everything else you don't say, or do or don't do, they will translate how they translate it. And the more you can communicate yourself to them, the less they'll make up, because what people don't know about you, they will make up. And the last thing I want is one of my student athletes making up my truth, which is why I communicated so much to them. So I want to commend all of you for taking on this challenge of coaching. I want you to wake up and hit that refresh button all day long on the massive responsibility it is. And don't feel that is something that is heavy, but that is a gift, that you have been chosen to help these young people develop into superheroes. They're going to go out and make the world a better place.
One of the best to ever do it. Miss Val, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your knowledge and your insight and your experience with our group leaders and our attendees today. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you, everybody. Go out and have a great day.
There you go. Thank you very much. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.